You're now watching Because Geek. 25 clues and foreshadowing from episode 6, Beyond the Wall. A lot of what happened at the end of this episode was foreshadowed at the beginning and the middle. I will point out 3 things. This shot here where the camera is panning towards the north, and it not only goes past the wall where we know Jon's team is headed, but there's also this fire in the background which is symbolic of the dragons eventually going up there. Then we had Tormund bringing up the fact that Mance let his people die because of his pride, which is also a clue that Jon's mind is going to end up changing about his knee bending, which we do see at the end.
Not about my queen.
And then Tyrion talks about arrows flying past Dany, saying that one of them could have found her heart, which makes us think that this is what will happen to Dany. And I don't know about you guys, but the whole time that the Night King was getting ready with his spear, I was just worried about Dany. I thought he'd throw it at her. But going back to that Tyrion and Dany conversation, before Tyrion says that line, they were talking about Dany's children. And who does the Night King end up attacking instead of Dany? One of her children. Talk of children and babies has had a big focus this season, especially in this episode, making a lot of us think that there is a possibility for Jon and Dany to have children together, even though Dany is supposedly barren. I will likely make a separate video about this because I do have a lot to say, but yeah, first, Jorah mentions Jon's children when he gives him back Longclaw and says,
"It served you well. And your children after you."
If we assume that these children's mother will be Dany, and we remember that this sword used to belong to Jorah, then it's interesting to think that this is a way for Jorah to continue to serve Dany even after his death. He has served Dany well, and now his sword will serve Dany's children well. This may seem like a reach to some, but I found the line said by Tormund about babies very interesting as well. He's talking about having babies with Brienne, which I think would be awesome, but he uses the word monsters, which, like I've said before, is a word connected to dragons. And he also says that they would conquer the world. Any child born from Dany would be considered a dragon, and would be meant to conquer the world. This is in fact the exact description that was given of Rhaegar, Dany's unborn child.
They say the child was...
monstrous. Twisted. He was scaled like a lizard. He would have been the stallion who mounts the world.
So this could be more foreshadowing for Dany's babies, or it could just be a coincidence. The writers may not have meant for that line to have that meaning, but I liked it and I figured I'd mention it. Then of course we have the scene where Tyrion and Dany talk about her children, and then we have the scene at the end where Dany once again mentions not being able to have children. There's too much focus on this topic for it to be nothing. There was also another conversation that I've been getting a feeling may be tied to Dany and Jon having children together as well. When Beric and Jon are discussing why the Lord of Light brought them back, Beric says that what he wants from Jon is his life. If Jon had a baby, he would be creating life. So what if that is the life that the Lord of Light wants from Jon? The life that he wants Jon to create? We get some supporting evidence that the Lord of Light wants to create life through Jon in this scene from way back in season 5, when Melisandre told Jon this same thing.
Power to make life, power to make light.
I just hope that whatever is born from Jon and Dany isn't like a shadow baby or a shadow dragon or something like that. But who knows? At least we know, thanks to both Melisandre and Beric, who have made it quite clear, that the war that matters is life against death. We already knew that the Night King represents death, but now we're a bit more sure that the Lord of Light represents life. And even though he likes to burn people, maybe we should have a bit more faith in him. In my last video, I pointed out some foreshadowing for the thing that Beric and Jon have in common playing a role later on, and Beric made sure that we didn't forget that in this episode, by bringing it up in 2 different occasions. Here,
your wildling friend told me the Red Woman brought you back. Thoros has brought me back 6 times.
And here.
The Lord brought you back, and he brought me back. No one else, just us. Did he do it to watch us freeze to death?
Beric also basically confirms that Jon's life won't have a happy ending. He was only brought back to keep others alive, or maybe to bring life by having a baby. But according to Beric, he will find no joy in it, which could mean that he will die before being able to enjoy what he helped create, or that helping keep others alive will require painful things like sacrifices. It's also curious how they made Jon say that Dany is their only hope, and then have Beric say right after that they could also just kill the Night King. Now what if those two things are actually connected, like they almost were in these two sentences? Maybe Dany does need to be sacrificed, or she needs to make a sacrifice to be able to kill the Night King. Yes, other than Viserion. This is a good time to mention Thoros' line to Gendry when he says,
She needed your blood.
This could be a reminder that sacrifices and blood are still needed from a specific person for the Lord of Light. Now we also need to point out that yet again in this episode, like in all others this season, there was more alluding to Jon secretly being a Targaryen. Like when Beric says that he doesn't look like Ned.
You don't look much like him.
And yes, in the books Jon is supposed to look like Ned, but looking past that, this whole season has been pointing to Jon's secret being a clue to defeating the Night King. And not just to have Jon be the rightful heir to the throne. It's been speculated that the title for the finale, which is The Dragon and the Wolf, will be related to a scene about Rhaegar and Lyanna, which would make sense because we've been expecting their secret to be revealed all season, since people won't stop bringing it up. Remember though that episode titles usually have multiple meanings for the episode. There was a big focus on the Hound being scared of and dealing with fire. He was scared of it during the whole fight with the bear, and both times that Thoros got burned.
Lord of Light.
I will also point out quickly here that it's possible that the Hound didn't do anything to save Thoros because maybe the Lord of Light had also shown him in the fire that Thoros would die, and the Hound knew that he couldn't do anything about it. But back to the fire thing, Tormund also brought up the Hound's relation to fire twice during their conversation.
Gingers are beautiful. They are kissed by fire. Just like you. Did you trip into the fire when you were a baby?
I would say that it's clear that the Hound's arc will end in him finally getting over his fear of fire, and I think that this whole season has been building up to it. But there must be a purpose. He must have to achieve some important goal by getting over his fear. And judging by how much David and Dan seem to be listening to what the fans want to see the most, I would say that it's safe to assume that this will have to do with Clegane Bowl. There was some foreshadowing for it when we were reminded of what the Mountain did to the Hound in this conversation.
I didn't trip, I was pushed.
And there was another clue when we realized that the Hound has been charged with taking the White to King's Landing, where the Mountain is. The Hound was also shown saving Tormund, and now that we know that the connection between him and Tormund is Brienne, and we know that Brienne is also going to King's Landing, could she also be involved in the Hound's overcoming of his fear? There's been plenty of scenes throughout the seasons showing us that the Hound has a big heart and cares for others, even though he doesn't want to show it. The Hound already wants to kill the Mountain, he doesn't need a reason for it.
We come across my brother. Maybe we can both cross a name off a list.
But here's a crazy idea. What if the Hound stops wanting to kill the Mountain after realizing that he's basically already dead? But then what if the Mountain ends up attacking Brienne? And there's like a fire separating the Hound from them. Maybe the Hound's big heart makes him run through the fire and save Brienne, while finally killing his brother at the same time. Yeah, it's a bit of a crazy idea, but who knows?
I don't think you truly mean. You have sad eyes.
Now it's safe to assume that Jorah will die in the service of Dany. He has pledged his life to her, but his life may be coming to an end very soon, after looking at all of the hints that I pointed out in my last video. I don't think Jorah will survive this great war, and this quick scene may be a nod to that fact, when Thoros says that he just got bit by a dead bear. And right at this moment, we not only see Beric, but we also see Jorah in the back, whose sigil is a bear, and he's looking kind of ghostly. I will admit that it seems like the white bear had no symbolic meaning relating to House Mormont, because David and Dan confirmed that this is just a cool thing they've been meaning to include in the show since season 2. Maybe the fact that it was Jorah who killed the bear had some meaning, but I just couldn't shake the feeling that Thoros saying dead bear with none other than Jorah in the back looking ghostly was a bit eerie. Now on to Winterfell. This scene between Arya and Sansa may not have had any secret meanings, but if it did, I can think of two things. First, an example of foreshadowing is when a character's dialogue will be repeated later on in a very similar fashion. So it is possible that the fact that Arya is bringing up a story about something that their father Ned did is foreshadowing Sansa doing the same thing later on. And of course, you probably already know what I'm talking about. Yeah, the line about the lone wolf dying and the pack surviving that we heard Sansa use in the trailer. We know that she also heard it from Ned, so it could be a simple foreshadowing for that. The roles will be flipped and Sansa will be saying it to Arya instead, creating a mirror of the dialogue in this scene. But here's another idea. Arya talks about her archery skills and getting really good at it. Her archery skills have been shown throughout the entire series, and a character closely connected to her, Gendry, has been shown talking about making arrowheads. All of this could be pointing to Arya's archery skills being important in the story, and that the arrows that she shoots could be made by Gendry, potentially being Valyrian steel arrowheads. Who knows, this could ultimately be how the Ice Dragon is defeated, by shooting it in the heart once again. That would be a cool little thing for Arya to do. Yeah, just a cool little thing. Sansa brings up Cersei.
Do you know how happy Cersei would be right now if she saw us fighting? This is exactly what she wants. This is what she's always wanted to do.
We already know that Littlefinger is the culprit of the arguments between Arya and Sansa, but a lot of us believe that Littlefinger could still be communicating with Cersei. So what if this is hinting at that? What if Cersei is involved in this as well? Or at least informed of what's happening in Winterfell through Littlefinger? I'm not sure exactly how that would play out, but it could be related to the invitation letter that Sansa received from King's Landing. Sansa's look when she sent Brienne away tells us that she didn't like doing it, but that she had to. And I don't think it had anything to do with what Sansa was telling Brienne. I think it had to do with what Brienne was telling Sansa about Littlefinger. I think that while Brienne was saying those things, Sansa was thinking something like, I know, this is why I'm doing this. Sansa has said plenty of times that she doesn't trust Littlefinger, so I find it very unlikely that she was actually listening to his advice in this scene. I think Sansa may have realized what Littlefinger was trying to do, and that's why she sent Brienne away, so that Littlefinger couldn't use her in his plans. There's also a few hints pointing to Arya's true intentions. First, Arya bringing up the game of faces, which is a reminder to us that Arya is very good at lying now, and acting like someone else. So maybe this whole Sansa hating thing is an act that she's putting on for Littlefinger because she knows that Littlefinger is watching them. Although Arya could also just be making sure that Sansa is on the Stark side, because being friends with Littlefinger is definitely suspicious. Arya has seen Littlefinger conspiring against the Starks before. But then, when Arya gave Sansa the dagger, a lot of us took it as a sign that Arya is still on Sansa's side, and she's only acting as if she's not. Arya may have been trying to communicate this to Sansa, similarly to what Marjorie did with Olenna back in Season 6. This could also mean that Arya is trying to protect Sansa from Littlefinger by giving her that dagger, and it'll be Sansa who uses it on him, instead of Arya like some of us were thinking. It's obvious that Littlefinger won't succeed at pushing these sisters apart. I just hope that they're actually outsmarting him right now, and not falling into another one of his traps so easily. Before I end the video though, I will give you a bonus foreshadowing. When Tormund talks about sex as a way to stay warm, it is Jon the one who says that there's not a living woman within 100 miles from where he is. And then, who is the one living woman who does travel that distance to where he is? Dany. Foreshadowing Jon and Dany's sex again. The dragon and the wolf? Yeah? Anyway, leave a like if you like this video, subscribe for more. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one!